Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. We've got a few things to get into this evening. We're going to talk a bit about Martin Baturina, something like that. Anyway, he's a Como player, plays an attacking midfield role. Fabrizio Romano has linked us to him, so we'll talk about him. We're also going to talk about what that actually means and what actually the January transfer window is going to look like for Leeds United. Because yes, I don't actually think we're probably going to get that player, but what that could mean is that Leeds United do have money to spend in January. Of course, last week we heard the report from The Guardian that stated that Leeds United will have money to spend in January. And now we're seeing that Leeds United are actually trying to make moves in January as well. So we'll talk all about that. And also, it's the Monday show, so we always talk about where the relegation battle is up to date with. And as you can tell, I'm doing this show with a smile on my face because actually, for the first time in a while, we're looking at a Monday morning and we're looking at the table and we're looking at the relegation battle. And for the first time in a few weeks, Leeds United are not in the relegation battle. Well, we are in the relegation battle. We're not in the relegation zone, is what I meant to say. But yeah, Leeds United are now in a much more prominent position and a much better position. So we'll talk a bit about that as well, because actually not only did Leeds get a good few results over the last sort of week or so, but actually other teams got quite bad results as well. So really good all round us for Leeds United, really. So we'll talk a bit about that as well. But thanks for coming and watching this evening if you are watching live, because of course there is this Jamie Carragher Monday Night Football Salah situation. But let's be honest, we're not Liverpool fans, we're Leeds United fans. So, you know, we're here talking about Leeds United. Anyway, let's get on with the first story, shall we? And let's talk about Baturina. Or Ballerina, as I'm liking to call him. Anyway, the situation is, for anyone that doesn't know, is that Fabrizio Romano basically said that yesterday that Baturina is a player, obviously, that plays for Como, attacking midfielder, and Leeds United are interested in him. And Leeds United actually made a formal approach to Como to try acquire the services of potentially Baturina in the January transfer window. And the rumoured fee, actually, that Leeds United were proposing and looking at sort of negotiating with Comat was around the £21 million mark. Now, the slight update regarding this player specifically is that apparently Como have no interest in selling in January, and I think part of this obviously is because I don't know if you know how much people know about Como, but they've got an attacking midfield player called Nico Paz, who's been fantastic. Obviously, we're linked to Spurs all last summer, and it looks like he's going to be going to Real Madrid in the summer, and I would expect then Baturina to take his place, obviously, in the summer transfer window. So I imagine now Baturina is just holding out his time at Como and waiting for that opportunity when obviously Nico Paz gets injured or Nico Paz obviously leaves the football club. So I don't think this is going to be a goal for Leeds United. As I said, Como no interest in selling, and also Baturina himself has no interest in actually leaving Como. But what it does mean is that there is money to spend. And this is where I'm really interested. And this is where I want the whole conversation to go, because I'm not actually too bothered. Like, if you see the title of this video, it's not really about sort of Baturina as a principle of a player. It's all going to be about sort of it's all about sort of what Leeds United can do in this January transfer window and where we need to upgrade. Because actually, to be honest with you, when I'm looking at this transfer window right now, at this moment in time, I actually don't think... I know we've seen a lot of people in the chat actually talk about an attacking midfield. And actually in the summer, if some of you guys watched me over the summer, I talked quite a lot about an attacking midfielder. I quite liked the likes of Gustavo Hamer. I thought he would have been a really good option. Obviously, we know the club looked at Buonanotte as well in the summer transfer window, and that nearly happened. Who obviously was an attacking midfielder, obviously could play on the right, but was mainly an attacking midfield player. That didn't happen. So you would expect maybe Leeds United look at that again in the transfer window. But actually, seeing the development of what this Leeds United team do, for me, in a 4-3-3, I like the sort of 2 number 8s and 1 number 6. I think that works well. It gives us that more defensive support, and I think that's helpful. And also, in a 5-3-2, again, I don't think you're going to play with a recognised number 10. So for me, we don't actually need number 10, truthfully, because we don't play with a number 10. And I don't want to change to a system that does occupy a number 10 position. So for me right now, actually, number 10 for me is not the position I'm looking at. I still like the idea of a strong number 9, like Nemecha, like a Calvert-Lewin profile, that sort of thing, to look at. And I think that could be a really good option, obviously, to bring in. We talked yesterday about the idea that maybe you could move Joel Perot on and bring someone in instead of Joel Perot, who obviously fits the profile of a Nemecha and DCL if we are going to play 2 up front. Because it's important, I think, when we play the 5-3-2 or the 3-5-2, that we have 2 sort of tall, powerful strikers. I didn't think Okafor worked in that 9 role in the same way we saw from Nemecha and DCL at all, really. And I think we do need them 2 profiles. So I think you need one more, especially with them 2's injury record as well. So I think that's where I'm at, and I also think as well in this current climate we're probably going to need a wing back as well, because I'm looking at going Goodmanson's on 4 yellows, obviously Bogle's on 4 yellows, and obviously there's a situation where them two get booked in the next game and both miss. Oh, hello camera, and they both miss. Obviously, well, that's never happened before. Is it going to stay still? Oh, that's not ideal. Is that better? Let's move it a bit. There we are. We're back. We're back. Sorry about that, people. But yeah, there is obviously a situation as well where them two both missing a game. And I think if them two miss a game, obviously that will show the problem we've got. Because I like the idea of Justin Elliott, and I like the fact that he could cover left back and right back. The issue, of course, is though, if one of them two gets injured, we don't have a replacement for both. We've only got one that can cover either side. So yes, Justin can do both sides. But if they're both missing, either one's banned and one's injured, or they're both banned, or however you want to look at it, I do think we need extra cover in there. Because let's be honest, we're bringing on Ball now at right wing back at this moment in time. And yes, all right, we managed to score a goal actually with Bornau on the pitch at the weekend, but really, do we want to be playing Bornau on the right wing back at all this season? Absolutely not, in my personal opinion. I don't think he fits that role in any way, shape, or form. I think maybe in a back three he can do a job. Maybe even in a back two he can do a job in the two centre half positions. Definitely not in a wing back role though. So I think that's something that Leeds United obviously are going to have to look at as well. But yeah, what are Leeds United going to do with this money? Because obviously, as I said, I referenced the Guardian sort of conversation at the start of this segment, right at the start of the video. And essentially, the Guardian said Leeds will have money to spend in January with the 49ers desperate to stay in the Premier League. They've committed tens of millions forward, redeveloping Elland Road, with BBC architects appointed, capacity rising to 53,000. And I think this is an interesting point, because we've talked a lot on this channel about the idea that obviously I think the stadium development is going to play into the minds. And I think I've seen some people on this channel say that maybe Leeds United want to get relegated. I've never understood that, in my opinion. I think we're at a situation where the 49ers are absolutely desperate to stay, to keep Leeds United in the Premier League. Look, the 49ers are here to make as much money as possible at this football club. But the way they're going to do that is by increasing the value of the asset of Leeds United. And the way you increase the asset of Leeds United is by staying in the league and progressing Leeds United up the league further and further and further. That is the way you're going to get the best. That's the way you're going to sort of get the best out of a revenue capacity, but not just a revenue capacity in terms of the actual asset and the sellable asset of Leeds United. And I think that is something that obviously Leeds United, that's what Leeds United board and the 49ers are aiming to do. So Leeds United being in the Premier League is absolutely paramount to the price of the football club. So Leeds United actually importing sort of £100 million in a transfer window like they did in the summer actually is not, in terms of what the value they could get from that back, is actually insignificant in terms of money gained. So I do think, to be honest with you, that we just need, as a football club now, and what the 49ers are going to try to do, I think they will try to spend everything they can in the January transfer window. I know Robbie Evans mentioned in the summer that might not happen. I think we're now seeing the leaked reports that we are going to start doing plays. And as I said, I think this Baturina deal, which obviously we know Fabrizio Romano's got great connections in Italy. If he's saying that, there's definitely going to be truth in that. So I do think Leeds United will move for that. Danny Ramsey says, Derby versus Leeds United in the FA Cup. Is that the draw, mate? I didn't even see that. I knew it was tonight, but I didn't actually know that we'd obviously picked out Derby. That's a rubbish draw, isn't it? That is pretty awful. Why do we always? I know we've actually in the last few years started to get a few more home draws, but it does feel, I mean, for the longest time, we always picked out away draws, and obviously it looks like we're still managing to do that. That's an awful fixture, in it. Like, it's just such a boring game. Danny also says, smash a like and subscribe, please. Yeah, if you could do that, that would be fantastic as well. If you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It does really help the channel. Anyway, let's move on to a few more things. The other thing that I want to mention, by the way, before we move on to the next topic and talk a bit about the relegation battle, is I want to talk a bit about sort of Farke's comments regarding the transfer window, because the truth of the matter is, so far, in terms of the transfer window, Farke's basically denied all questions. And I actually think that's probably a positive for Leeds United, because I think if Daniel Farke was coming out right this moment in time saying Leeds United, I think if we were buying in January, he'll say absolutely nothing. And I think if we weren't buying in January, he would toe the usual line of, we've got to be realistic, it's going to be a difficult window for Leeds United, etc., etc. And I think the fact that we're not hearing them things, and we are hearing the more positive side of it, and we're hearing basically, I'm not to talk about it at all, suggests to me that Leeds United are going to do something in the January transfer window. The only sort of overriding question I've got regarding this whole situation is, where's this money coming from? Because we got told in the summer that there wasn't any room with PSR, and basically we spent up. Obviously, we know there was some money there because we went in for Wilson later on. But we always got told that that was the case, that we'd sort of run out of money, and PSR was being such a hamstringing us as such. But now we're managing to spend 20 million on this player. I don't know. And as I said, I just wouldn't believe this, but because it's Fabrizio Romano, there's truth in it. So I'm hoping actually that they were lying in the summer and there is money spent in January, because I think that's best case outcome, because that obviously means that we can then upgrade the squad. And as I said, even if we don't get Baturina, maybe we can get another number 9. Because actually, if you sold Pro, maybe you'd sort of bring in maybe £5 to £10 million into the football club. You add another 10 million on top of that, and you've got yourself a £20 million striker, and you can really look at some decent options in the January market. So I do think there's going to be, and also as well, we've talked about this a lot, and I think it's something to bear in mind. I think loans are something that Leeds United definitely have to use in the January transfer window. Loans are going to be a really good option this year, more than ever before, because of the World Cup in the summer. Because lots of players will currently think, well, normally I'd battle my way to get back into whatever squad I'm in. So, for example, Kobe Mainoo at Man United, we've talked about this in Charles before. He's obviously struggling to get into the Man United team at this moment in time. That's his key problem. But because of the World Cup in the summer, rather than try fight to get back into this Man United team, or think, well, maybe there might be a managerial change at Man United and I might get him back that way, he might be forced this time to go out on loan. So he gives himself an opportunity to get into a team so he can actually make the World Cup squad. And Kobe Mainoo is just an example of one player, but there'll be thousands of other players across the planet who normally wouldn't go out on loan and would go and would sort of fight for their place. But because of the World Cup year, they won't do that this time. So I think that's something important to bear in mind. I even remember actually that Conor Cody for the World Cup in Qatar, I believe. I'm not sure this is exact. I'm trying to, but I'm pretty sure it is. He was at Wolves, and he basically got told that he wasn't going to be in the 11 anymore, and he wasn't going to be feature, and he wasn't part of the manager's plans. And he said, in a normal year, that would have been fine. I'd have just fought for my place and got back in, like it had happened a few times before. But because this year was a World Cup year, I couldn't do that, and I had to get a move. And as I said, I think we're going to see a lot of movement in this January transfer window, more than we normally do, because of the effects of the World Cup and because of the effects that players want to get in that World Cup team. So I think that's something very, very important to mention around the January transfer window. So if Leeds United have got money to spend, that's fantastic, but we also have got to be clever with getting loan players in who should be available, obviously, with the World Cup there. So yeah, that's the situation regarding the January transfer window at this moment in time. Anyway, let's move on a bit to the relegation battle, because this is almost where I wanted the video to go really today, because it's much more positive now, and I can feel it in the chat, and I can sense it online, I can sense it on Twitter. Obviously, even I think there's a lot of people who still are Daniel Farke out. I'm sure we've got a lot in the chat who are Daniel Farke out at this moment in time as well. And I get that. I still think that the question mark will always be with Daniel Farke. Yes, he's changed it now, and I think people, for the majority, like the changes that Daniel Farke has made. But the overriding question is, why didn't you do it earlier? And I think that will always dominate this whole conversation. Why didn't you do that earlier? And I think that's what people will always look at, and look at sort of the lack that he actually did to change it. And it took so long. It almost felt like his job was on the line before he made the changes. For me, obviously, as you know, I've never been Daniel Farke out. I was getting there, but I've never been there. I felt like he was on a path, and I still wonder if he might be on a path. And that's obviously, we talked about the Brentford game, and that might be a path. But it's all just calmed down a bit now, hasn't it? It's all just sort of settled. And now we've got this big game against Brentford. And if you look at the table at this moment in time, if we were to beat Brentford, we go 1 point behind Brentford, and then they're instantly in the relegation fight. Because I think no matter where we are in this league, unless we go on a massive run, we are going to be in the scrap. So bringing more and more teams into it is going to be as beneficial as possible. But if we look through what's actually happened in this sort of relegation battle at this moment in time, we'll start with Burnley, because obviously Wolves play tonight against Man United. We'll see how that goes. I do expect obviously Man United to win that, but with Man United you just never know. Obviously watching this on the playback, I'm sure obviously you'll all know the result of that, but I won't be surprised if they get something. But I mean, come on, they haven't scored in 5 games. We've lost the last 8. You'd expect Man United to win, but you never know. But if we look at Burnley, they for me now have had a turning point in this last week, and I think this is where Leeds United could have been if we hadn't done what we've done this week. I think Burnley find themselves in a position at this moment in time where I think they're down now. I think they're down, and I think if you look at the table, there's starting to be a bit of a gap there. There's obviously 3 points to West Ham, but actually to get out of the relegation zone, which is the most important thing, obviously, for Burnley, it's now 5 points to get out of the relegation zone. And I just don't see Burnley getting 5 more points than either us or Forest till the end of the season. So I think they're going to go down now. And I've thought that for a while. I just think we haven't seen the points to back that up yet. And I think now we're starting to see that. I just don't think their squad's good enough. I think the only thing with Burnley, obviously, is that they could sack Parker, which I think's teetering on at that moment in time. And if they were to sack Parker, maybe that could see a reaction. But truthfully, I just don't think their squad's good enough. So I think they will eventually go. Miller Leeds fan says, evening, mate. Evening to you too, mate. I don't think I've seen you in the chat before, but maybe I have. Apologies if I've missed you before, but nice to see you anyway. But yeah, that's so I think Burnley are down, which is good because I think Wolves are gone. I think Burnley are gone. And I think now, if you look at the table there's a lot of teams all fighting for that 18th spot. And that gives me much more confidence because the more teams involved in a relegation battle, for me, the better. Because obviously it means that more teams then can slip up and find themselves in the relegation battle, which fundamentally is what we want at the football club. So that's good. I think Fulham as well are starting to get dragged into it again. They had them brilliant 2 results where they won back-to-back games and it sort of dragged them out of it. Obviously, they beat Sunderland and they won another game. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but they won 2 in a row, didn't they? And I think you looked at it and went, wow, they're sort of trying to pull out. But then they've now lost again and they're now dragged back into it again. The only thing with Fulham, which I think is going to be interesting for them, is that they play Burnley next away from home, then they play Forest at home, and then they play West Ham away. 3 really, really strong fixtures, obviously, against all these teams. So Fulham play against 17th, 18th, and 19th in the next 3. And these 3 games will be absolutely huge for Fulham, and it will probably dictate if they find themselves completely out of it. And if they win all them games or maybe get 6 points, they'll be well out of it for probably a sustained amount of time. But if they were to say lose there or draw them games, I think they could be right in the scrap, which I think is good, obviously, for Leeds United, because I think they're a team that could go down. And the good thing about that is, if Fulham do not pull away in them particular games, I think they've got an awful run after that. I think they've got likes of Aston Villas and Man Cities, and it's just a horrendous run. Because like always, if you play a few good games, you're probably going to play a few bad games. Naturally, that's how it works. So, as obviously we know, as being a Leeds fans with our fixtures that we've just played. So, as I said, for me, Fulham are still in the fight. Brentford just about as well. But if we move on to Forest, I think the Forest situation, I think these are going to be good enough to get out of it. I think Dyche is too experienced. I think this is the best squad he's ever had. They obviously finished 7th last year, so they can't have been that bad. And then they spent another £200 million in a transfer window, so you'd expect the squad calibre to have gone up another level. And I just think they'll get themselves out of it. I think they're in a bit of a false position. I know they got hammered at Hillsborough, the Hill Dickinson at the weekend, obviously at Everton, 3-0, and they were absolutely abhorrent in that game. And I think potentially that you look at it and go, wow, maybe they're back in it again. But I just think their quality will pull them out of it personally. Like, I think if they were really in it come sort of March, they'd just grind out 1-0s till the end of the season with the squad makeup that they've got and with obviously Dyche in charge. So I think that's something to bear in mind with Nottingham Forest. I don't see, unfortunately, I know they're still 11 on points with us at this moment in time, and obviously we've got 1 better goal difference, but I still think Forest are going to get out of it. But I'm interested in the comments what you guys think on all this, what I'm saying. Jack says, evening, Scott, marching together. Evening to you too, Jack. Nice to see you in the chat, mate. I'm actually dying this evening. I feel a bit tired. But oh well. I think it's because I've come back from the gym and I've been ill for a while, so first time I've been back to the gym. Anyway, and obviously the other team that I want to talk a bit about as well is, of course, West Ham, because you look at West Ham at this moment in time, and their main thing with West Ham is, I think Nuno, you are starting to see the impact of Nuno on the West Ham team at this moment in time. I think they're starting to pick up decent points away from home, which is what you'd expect. They obviously picked up a good point against Brighton, although they did throw away 2 points in the 91st minute. Thank you, Jorginho Rutter, for that one, you beautiful boy. And of course, they picked up that point at Old Trafford. They picked up a point away at Bournemouth as well. So they have been picking up these away points. And I think that's something that Leeds United need to add to the game, picking up points away from home. And I think fundamentally, West Ham away from home will probably have a better structure than we will, in my personal opinion. And I think they will pick up more points away from home than we will. I think they've already picked up 7 points away from home, whereas we've only picked up 3. So, and I think that shows again that they have got more of a structure of picking points up away from home. He's obviously already picked up a 1-1 draw away at the Hill Dickinson Stadium as well, of Everton's ground. So I think West Ham are going to be quite decent away and hard to beat. And obviously they've got that pace of sort of Somerville's and Bowens on the counter-attack who can add a lot of quality as well. So I think away they're going to be a bit of a problem. And they're going to constantly pick up these points that we won't pick up. The worst thing about West Ham though is the home form. You listen to a lot of West Ham fans talk, and they are so sort of disillusioned with their home atmosphere, and their home atmosphere is so bad. I think they believe that their home form is bad enough to the point where they could be back into a fight. Before the Newcastle game that they won, they'd actually not. I don't believe they'd won a home game for something like 6 months or 7 months. Like, it'd been absolutely abhorrent home record, and they're actually second bottom for home form behind Wolves at West Ham. That's how bad they are at home. They've only picked up 6 points at home. They beat Burnley at home and they beat Newcastle in back-to-back games at home. But every single other home game they've lost. They've played, I think, 7 home games, lost 5 of them. So Leeds United are miles better at home, and I think part of that is obviously Elland Road and the way we set up at home. But we have got a real positive out of our home form in comparison to West Ham. I just think their away form, they're going to keep nabbing these points away from them that we've got to start doing, and that's where we can match them. And I think when we're looking at a principle, because I think if there's one team that we can finish it with, it is West Ham. But if I think there's a principle that we've got to do, we've got to try start nicking points away from home like them. And then, in my opinion, we've got to keep up our home atmosphere. And I think if we can do that, I think we can finish above West Ham this year. I really do. The only thing that I'd say with West Ham, though, on the recent sort of successes that they've had, I guess, is that I sort of had that feeling, having watched them in that Brentford game and watched them quite a number of times this year, even watched them in a lot of home games, even against the Liverpool home game. And I've said on the channel quite a few times, there's a lack of fight. I actually don't think there's a lack of fight with West Ham away from home. I think they're quite good, as I said, I think they're quite good away from home. And to pick up points away from home in this league, which notoriously so far this season, there's been nowhere near the amount of away points won as in any previous year. Like, nobody's winning away from home basically at all at this moment in time. So I do feel a bit like they're going to be annoying that they just keep chipping away with these away points. But if we, as I said, if they can keep losing home games and we can keep dominating them at home in terms of how many points we're picking up compared to them, I think we can really drag them into it. And it was nice that they've now thrown away another 2 points away from home against, obviously, Brighton as well, when they only got a draw when they were winning in the 91st minute. Anyway, let's get into some of your guys' comments. Jack says, evening, Scott. Match them together. Evening to you too, Jack. I'm not writing off Forest at all. I don't think Dyche is what he used to be. Interesting. Everton fans would agree they've got a lot of quality, though. Yeah, they do. I think Everton are quite a good side, and obviously that shows now. I think they've won 4 of the last 5 games. I just think Forest are too good to go down, probably. I think they've won 3 of the last 5 still, so they're not actually doing that bad. Obviously, they beat Liverpool a few weeks back, and I think we all thought at that point that they just push on. But they have sort of slipped in the last few weeks, obviously losing to Brighton at home, and then obviously losing 3-0 away at sort of the Hill Dickinson Stadium as well. Do you think Fulham can still be pulled in? Yeah, I do, mate. I do. I think Fulham could be someone that pulls in. I think the thing with Fulham that I've always liked about them in terms of why I think they can pull in is I don't think their squad's that good. Like, I look at sort of the Nottingham Forest squad, and I think that's a really decent squad. I think that's a squad that should never, ever go down. Whereas I look at the Fulham squad, and I think Marco Silva is massively overperforming with the tools that he's got. I don't think that's a great squad at all, in my personal opinion, at Fulham. And I think actually our squad's quite comparable to Fulham's. I think that's one of the worst squads in the league at Fulham. So I always think that that's a good sign. And I think if anything was to happen with the relationship between Marco Silva and Fulham, that could become really, really interesting. And we know that contract isn't signed yet, and it's still a bit tetchy between them two. So until Marco Silva signs a new deal at Fulham, I have them indefinitely in the race. Yeah, I do. If Leeds is able to beat Brentford, which is not easy looking at their home form, they are part of the relegation battle as well. Yeah, they are. They are 100%. And I think that's why it's so important. The only thing, as you said, Sebastian, is they are unbelievable at home. I mean, I was looking at their home form today. I think they're 5th in the division for home form. I think they've played 7 and won 16 points in the first 7 games at home. Just ridiculous home form, that. We've been pretty good at home, as we know, but we've only picked up 12 in 8. And they've picked up, 16 in 7. So they've been unbelievable at home. The thing is with Brentford, like us actually, they are absolutely abhorrent away from home. They've actually won 1 game away from home all season. Obviously similar to, they picked up 3 points away from home, similar to us. If Leeds is able to beat, yeah, I've read that one. Wolves and Burnley look certs for relegation. Home form is crucial for Leeds. to stay up. Beating Chelsea in a draw at Liverpool, very good week for Leeds United. Yeah, it was, mate. It was a fantastic week, and I agree. I think Burnley are gone. I've thought Burnley are gone. If I'm being totally honest, since the first game of the first season of the season, I've never thought they were going to stay up ever, and I've always said on this channel, I've maintained it. If you finish below Burnley, you will be relegated, because they aren't going to finish any higher than 17th. So if you finish below Burnley, you're definitely down, in my personal opinion. But I think they're definitely going to go. I think Wolves are definitely gone, and I think Burnley are definitely going to be gone. And it's just about us trying to finish above one of the rest of them. That is it. I don't care if we finish 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th. Just don't finish 18th. And there's loads of teams there that can all be dragged into it. And I still think Sunderland are on, I believe, 22. I think they're on 22. Someone can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think they're on about 22 or 23. And they've obviously got AFCON, which is a huge problem. We've obviously played them in a few weeks as well. If they didn't win in the next two, which I think they've got Newcastle and some, I can't remember who else they've got. But if they don't win the next two, and we play them, we beat them, and we pick something, and say we beat Palace, and then we beat Sunderland, we could drag them right into it. I do think that as well. Always feel when Everton stayed up, it was their crowd that dragged them over the line under Dyche. Will they have that at the City Ground? I think the City Ground's a pretty good atmosphere, to be fair. Although that is a good comment, because that gives me confidence about Elland Road. However, of course, at Elland Road we have been relegated quite recently, so maybe not. But I think our atmosphere is unbelievable at Leeds, and I think it's comparable to anyone in the league, and I think it's probably the best at this moment in time in the whole division. I mean, you even hear opposition fans saying that, so I don't think that's too ludicrous to say. So I think Elland Road's a huge beneficiary for Leeds United, and I think that could be something that really can push Leeds United on. Well, I hope anyway. Anyway, I've got to be honest, people. I am feeling a bit knackered. I don't know if I've overdone it at the gym. Do you know what? Sometimes you like sort of get back from an illness and then you push it a bit too much, and you're like, bloody hell, I'm knackered. Well, I feel a bit like that at this moment in time. I almost feel like somehow I was a bit zoned out. So I'm going to wrap it up there, because I'm going to slightly lightheaded. So I will see you all later, but thanks for joining, as always. Obviously, important to note, by the way, tomorrow and Wednesday are both going to be 7 p.m. streams, because it is a Champions League week. Obviously, we're back at 8 p.m. on Thursday, and we're back at 8 p.m. on Friday as well, so that's all good. But importantly to note, if you want the streams tomorrow, 7 p.m. Tuesday and 7 p.m. Wednesday. But I'll see you later, everybody. Bye for now, and thanks for watching as always. I have enjoyed it this evening, although I am fading. So I'll see you later. Bye for now. Bye for